Good evening. You're watching News Night, and the hot topic today is still the NRC. After the final Assam state list of the NRC came out and 19 lakh people were excluded from it, this big controversy is only getting bigger. Even as the state Assam BJP has reservations about the procedure and the final outcome of the NRC in the state of Assam, we are seeing more and more voices coming out across the country, Pan-India voices that want NRCs, statewide NRCs in India, or even a Pan-India NRCs as well. But the question still arises, if such alleged discrepancies are rampant in the Assam state NRC, is this a system that is feasible, indeed competent enough to make sure that those with valid documents are included in the National Register for Citizenship at all? This is a very contentious topic, a politically sensitive topic as well. We'll try and have a holistic discussion on this. But to give you a ground situation of what those 19 lakh people who find their names out of the NRC despite having all the documents that they need to prove that they are Indian citizens feel like, we of course made sure that our colleagues fanned out across Assam and got you ground reports. We'll show you some of those reactions of the people who find their names out of the NRC. Just for perspective, we'll take a look at this first. After that, we'll go across to our guests. But first, take a look at this.
আমার মা বাবার ডিটেনশন ক্যাম্পে আছে। এখন আমি মা বাবার দেখতে যাইতে পারি নাই। আমার ভাই দাদা আছে, ওরা কাজ করে, কাজের জন্য বাইরেই থাকে। আমি ঘরে একলাই আছি। মা বাবার ডিভোটারের জন্য কেস হয়েছে। সব 64 এর কাগজ দিছি, তারপরও এনআরসি আসেনি।
কি ডকুমেন্ট দিয়েছিল?
মাটির দলিল, আর 64 এর মাটির দলিল, আর মাইগ্রেশন। আমার জ্যাঠার একই ডকুমেন্ট দিয়ে ভালো হয়েছে কেস, আর আমার বাবার কেস ভালো হয়নি। এনআরসি তো জ্যাঠার ভালো হয়েছে, আমার দাদা, আমার কাকার বাবার আরো জ্যাঠার ভালো হয়নি। সবকিছু আছে আমাদের, কেন ভালো হয়নি?
তোমার মা বাবাকে কখন নিয়েছে? তারপরে তুমি দেখা হতে গেছিলে?
আমি আমার মা বাবার রঙিয়া কোটের থেকে লয়ে গেছে। আমি মা বাবারে দেখতে যাইতে পারিনি, পয়সার অভাবে। বহুত কষ্টে আমি আছি। আমি একলাই ঘরে আছি, আমার লয়ে যাও। আমি এইখানে থাকতে চাই না, আমি এইখানে বহুত কষ্ট হইতেছে। আমাদের ঘরের পরিস্থিতি বহুতই খারাপ। আমি এখন একলা এইখানে থাকতে পারি না, মা বাবার দেখতে চাই।
हम लोग यहाँ मोटामोटी 60 साल से है, 60 सन से, और एनआरसी में नाम नहीं आया, इसीलिए हम लोगों का बहुत दुख है। और हम लोगों का डॉक्यूमेंट्स भी है 65 का, 64 का, और हमारा परिवार में कोई डीवी नहीं है, कोई कुछ नहीं है, सब क्लियर है। और तभी हमारा नाम नहीं आया है, इसीलिए सरकार से अनुरोध करता हूँ सभी को नाम आना चाहिए। पिताजी का लिंक डॉक्यूमेंट्स, वोटर कार्ड और जन्म सर्टिफिकेट, स्कूल सर्टिफिकेट और छोटा भाई का पासपोर्ट, ये सब दिया था।
आप लोगों के पास पासपोर्ट है, वोटर आईडी,
पासपोर्ट भी? हाँ, सरकार से हम यही अपील करेंगे, जो डॉक्यूमेंट्स देखने वेरीफाई करने वाला लोग रहेगा ना, ऑफिसर रहेगा, वो ऑफिसर अच्छा होना चाहिए। वो ऑफिसर अच्छा करके छानबीन करके देख के ही ले। और पहले जो एनआरसी में ऑफिसर था, वो ऑफिसर गाफिलती की वजह से बहुत लोगों का नाम नहीं आया।
बहुत ही मुश्किल हो रही है। हमारा परिवार का तो कोई भी नाम नहीं आया। 100 जन परिवार है, किसी भी नाम नहीं है। 64 और 65 को डॉक्यूमेंट्स हम लोग दिए थे, लेकिन नाम नहीं है। जन्म तो यह हुआ ना हम लोगों को, कहाँ से आया अब तो पता नहीं बोलूं। यही बोलना चाहूंगी कि हम लोगों को सरकार ने एनआरसी में नाम दिए, यही मैं सरकार को अनुरोध जनाऊंगी। यही बारे में सरकार को यही बोलूंगी, सरकार हम लोगों को इतना गरीबी लोगों को सहाय करे, यही बोलूंगी सरकार।
All right, those are some of the reactions we got on the ground from Assam. My colleague Arundam, of course, is to be given credit for that. Thank you for joining us. Our guest, Zainab Islam, a spokesperson of the BJP, joins us tonight on Newsnight. Subransh Rai, political analyst, and Suhas Chakma completes the panel. He's a human rights activist. First to you, Mr. Islam, if I could. There is a lot of distress in Assam after 19 lakh, perhaps even more people were left out. And in certain cases we've seen, and this has been corroborated from the ground as well, that members of the same family, siblings, some of whom find their names inside the NRC, others from the same family with valid documents find their names excluded here. In the wake of such distress that we're seeing on the ground in Assam, do you still believe that all those people who still have grievances about why their names are not in the NRC despite having all the relevant and valid documents, for example, voter ID cards, they've been voting for about decades now, as well as Indian passports that people had given in so that their names could be included. There are alleged discrepancies on a mass scale. Do you still think that this particular exercise can be condoned by those people who believe and are citizens of India but find their names excluded from the list? Do you still think this is a feasible, viable idea?
Well, NRC is a viable idea, and everyone knows that the entire process had begun in 1951 and not now. It is just that after 2015, it has been accelerated, and we see there is a list today which has been given by the NRC committee under the supervision of the Supreme Court. But we do see a lot of discrepancy, and that has been also spoken by our senior colleague from the Northeast, Mr. Sarma, who has very clearly articulated that there are names which is missing. There are names which should have been not there in the list, have found place in the list. So discrepancies are there. That's why we have requested that it should be revalidated at least 20% in this the border area and the mainland area, 10% from the mainland area. This needs to be re-verified, and something which we will approach the Supreme Court.
But the idea is not something I'm questioning, Mr. Zafar Islam. I'm not questioning the idea of the NRC. I'm merely questioning the procedure, which seems to have a lot of leaks, discrepancies, as you might call them. The NRC, in fact, took about 4 years. This particular exercise took about 4 years to complete. And if in 4 years such mass discrepancies mean that 19 lakh people with valid Indian documents find their names outside for no apparent reason, and their hopes for grievance redressal is very minute here, where will those people go then?
See, right now, for them there is no uncertainty, because the statement has come from the Ministry of External Affairs, from our party, from the government. Everyone has stated that those people have been excluded from the list. They have the legal recourse available with them. They must approach the tribunal and provide them all the necessary documents. If they think that those documents are there, then they must provide those documents and ensure that their names gets included in the list. But what is important, Athar, that is something which I think all of us, you will find everyone on the same page, that it is not the Bharatiya Janata Party which had initiated this process. The process which had initiated by the
understood. This is a Supreme Court monitored process. I understand that. I understand. But
one thing which is important, one thing which is important, that the only objective Bharatiya Janata Party has, that those illegal immigrants should be identified, and they should be the one who should be excluded from this list.
Look, that's all well and good, Mr. Zafar Islam.
No right.
That's all well and good, but the fact is, these people whose names have been excluded claim they have the bona fide documents to prove they're Indian nationals, and that's what I'm questioning right now. So, as Chakma, the process itself is not foolproof, and that is quite evident by the 19 lakh names that we've seen excluded from this particular list. Even the state Assam BJP is not okay with the final list of the NRC. So clearly there are discrepancies in the process itself. I'm not here, let me remind everyone, not questioning the idea per se of the NRC, but the process, which seems to have a lot of loopholes. Suhas Chakma, where will these 19 lakh people go? And most of these people, let me remind our viewers, have in fact claimed to have valid documents like Indian passports, like voter ID cards, even Aadhaar cards. To top it all, we've seen cases where the same family, members of the same family, half of the family is in the NRC, half is outside the NRC. It's difficult to believe that this is a foolproof exercise then, Suhas Chakma.
See, if there is a genuine and fair process, from now on, out of this 19 lakhs people, at least minimum 18 lakhs 50,000 people shall be included in the NRC list. Because of the way you look at it. I mean, today we have seen that about 1 lakh scheduled tribes who are the original inhabitants of Assam, they have been excluded from the NRC. I think BJP should get it very clear. First of all, please check your own facts. If you check the facts, you will find out that from 1971 till 2018, the population growth rate in Assam has been less than the population growth rate at the national level. So there is no indication that massive influx had taken place. And the influx which had taken place earlier, for God's sake, you have accepted them as citizens of the country. So if you have an NRC, if you still believe, you are still talking about that there are a huge number of illegal, infiltration, that is not supported by the Census of India's own report. So you should get, forget about that. The second issue is, if you actually have this kind of an NRC, because Assam had NRC in 1951, people still have documents. But if you were to carry out this kind of NRC all over the country, millions and millions of Indians shall have no documents. So the process for identification of alleged infiltrator is not about identifying a foreigner. It's basically identifying who have documents and who do not have documents. So even if you are a scheduled tribe, if you have no documents, then you are a foreigner. So this process has to end, and I think at the end of the process, what we have to remember, the Ministry of Home Affairs said today that none of the people who have been excluded from the NRC shall be sent to jail till they exhaust the entire legal procedure up to Supreme Court. Everybody is equal before the law. If that is the case, why are you putting the people who have lost the case in the Foreigners Tribunal? See, we are a country governed by the rule of law. And if we are governed by the rule of law, we have to ensure equality before law. And we have to remember one thing.
So, do you believe that this particular equality before the law has not been maintained in the case of the NRC, especially with the indigenous tribes you mentioned, and all those people who do not have valid relevant documents but are citizens, original inhabitants of the state? Do you believe that somehow is diluted by the entire process of the NRC?
Athar, actually, BJP government is
no,
always.
One second. This is for Mr. Chakma. 1 second. So, Shubhrans, this is for Mr. Chakma, please.
No, that has been diluted. No.
Yes, Suhas.
This has been diluted by the Government of India and the Supreme Court, because in the guidelines or the documentation it says original inhabitants of Assam. So the original inhabitants of Assam have never been identified by the Government of India and the Supreme Court. Then the Supreme Court in one of its orders said original inhabitants shall also include the T tribes. So the only community which has been identified as a scheduled tribe by the Supreme Court is the T tribe. So neither the Taya Homes, neither the scheduled tribes of Assam have been considered as original inhabitants. So why do you use a terminology, which you cannot define? And unless you list that these are the communities which shall be considered as...
So I'll come back to you. I'll round back to you on this issue here. I want to get Mr. Shubhrans Rai's opinion. I believe he wanted to come in here before I go back to Zafar Islam. Shubhrans Rai, go ahead, please.
Athar, I personally believe BJP government always in hurry. Yes, of course, NRC is the matter of under the supervision of Supreme Court. But there is a big question and big question mark into the government. The concern number one, these are 19 lakhs people who are affected and suffer by your data just because of your elected officers who are matching the NRC documents with the list. Point number one. Point number two, if you just connected these data, so just try to understand that these peoples are not exactly from one religion. From the Bangladesh, for Hindu and Muslims both are coming. But the big question and concern which exactly I pointed out and raised out against the government, these 19 lakhs people finally in next 6 months, 8 months, 1 year down the line, they submitted their paper and finally they come into the list. But the big question is from the next 1 year tenure, no one can ask about the job, no one can ask about the economy, no one can ask about the integrity, because entire nation has a problem to make the list where every people is looking, bhai mera naam list mein kyun nahi aaya, mera naam list mein aaya ki nahi aaya. And the big question, because it is a question and integrity from the concerned officer who are matching and managing the data. If wife names are there, husband names are there, but their siblings are not there. If one son is there, second one is not there.
Okay.
One brother is there, second brother. It means somehow whosoever person who is managing and making the list.
One second, Zafar Islam, go ahead, Zafar Islam. Respond to that. And also let me ask you, Zafar Islam, before you answer.
I think,
yes.
Arthur.
Yes, go ahead, Zafar.
No, Arthur, all I just want to respond to him that the process should have been completed by Congress government long back. Since it was pending, it has become little complicated today. Had it been completed in 1951, we wouldn't have
that's not an
encountered
excuse,
this problem. We have accelerated the process.
Zafar, yes, that's not an excuse.
No, I'm not saying. I said
that cannot be the excuse.
I'm not saying excuse. The problem has become a big.
No one has.
You have multiplied. The
problem
has multiplied to a big number.
Let Zafar finish his point. Allow him to complete. Zafar, please go ahead, sir.
In 1951, it was a small issue, but today it's a big issue because the number of people involved is more than 3 crore. Now, what I'm saying that despite all the efforts which has been taken by the officers, still there are discrepancies, and I completely agree to that it needs to be revalidated at least a sample size of 20% must be taken in the border area and in the mainland area 10%, and should be revalidated. At least you will have clarity that whether the process which has been adopted.
The attempt for the past 4 years, and I want to get Suhas Chakma on this as well. Suhas, Zafar Islam says this has been complicated because of the increased numbers involved. First of all, that should not and cannot be the excuse here, because if you're undertaking an exercise which involves millions of people, their lives, their nationalities and their livelihoods and their lives, of course, you cannot have the excuse of increase in numbers. Number two, do you believe, as Mr. Hajera, who's in charge of the entire process, Pratik Hajera, says, that all those people who find their names excluded from the NRC can appeal, have redressal mechanisms? Are those really working on the ground? Because our reports contradict that. Our reports suggest that those people have absolutely no recourse.
So first of all, if people have not been included despite having the documents, it doesn't matter whether you do it with 10 people or with 1 crore people. So there are certain prejudices which worked in the process. Second, I think the BJP should stop asking for re-verification, because then you cast aspersion on the entire process, on the Supreme Court itself. Because the people who have been included, despite all these discrepancies or incompetence of the staff, please, you do not defame people. People who have entered in the documents of the NRC, they have entered with the valid documents. And this 20%, 10% verification is not anything but you want to secure that certain religious groups should not be included. Finally, with respect to the people, whether they are getting the legal rights and etc., these are poorest of the poor. They could not fill up the sample or simple form. before the executive authorities. Now you are asking them to appear before the Foreigners Tribunal, which is a quasi-judicial body, and they have to hire a lawyer. Hiring a lawyer costs between 50,000 to 250,000 at the Foreigners Tribunal level. These people, in the process of getting included in the NRC, have been economically destroyed already.
Isn't there?
And you are asking
Islam,
them,
if you feel like you have to answer that, that's an obvious hurdle. I mean, legal fees and legal recourse are apart. Mr. Suhas Chakma has correctly pointed out, all those people who want to take up their case in the Foreigners Tribunal need to engage or hire a lawyer. These are the poorest of the poor. Where will they get their grievance redressal from? This is Zafar Islam. Quick answer to that before I go to Shubhran. Zafar, go ahead.
No, the state administration, the state government will definitely provide them all the support as has been announced by the Chief Minister himself. Those who have not found their name in the list and they still feel that they are the bona fide resident of the country and they also have all the documents with them, yet their names are not figured out in those lists, then at least the legal recourse what they are going to take is the state government is going to support them, and something which has already been announced by the state government.
Okay, we understand the Home Minister Amit Shah is also going to visit Assam and speak to officials there as well. We'll see what comes out of that. Subran Shrai, you had a point to make. Go ahead, please.
At the end of the day, I believe, who the officer is responsible for any mistake, because, I just seen your video and found it. The people are very poor. Do you think is it possible in future to manage their law and lawyer against the appeal for their permanent residency? I believe, and I strongly believe, somehow I feel, it is a government policy where government try to change the focus from one topic to another topic, because somehow the wife's name is into the list, brother's name into the list, and some 4 or 5 members are not into the list. So people are running for next couple of months, couple of years to complete their residency. So it is a big gap, big discrepancy into the data. And if from the last
but do these
couple of months, if the government machinery
do these
the process,
alleged discrepancies?
so
now I want to ask Suhas Chakma this.
Maybe
so what do you want?
One second.
Illegal immigrants should continue to live in the country?
Give me a second, sir. So these so-called alleged discrepancies on a mass scale, allegedly, as has been reported today, Suhas Chakma, can this be in fact addressed in whatever short period of time we might see in the next future, in the near future, given the fact that the NRC final list took 4 years in just the state of Assam? Now we have calls for Pan-India NRC. Given the exam experiment, and I'm calling it an experiment because this is not the final word on this, clearly not. Do you think a Pan-India NRC can be pulled off without the danger of discrepancies and millions of people losing not just their lives and livelihood but their identities as well?
See, the entire population of Bangladesh is 16 crores. And I do not know how many people have come. If in the name of identifying the alleged Bangladeshis, if you put 1.3 billion people through the scrutiny of putting themselves, proving that, they are citizens of this country, please, BJP government is most welcome to go ahead and see the reaction of the people. In this country, people still cannot visit the temples. They cannot visit public places, Dalits, and you are talking about documentation from 1951. Because outside Assam, if you talk about citizenship, you have to prove from 1951. BJP is most welcome to do that. Now the question is whether people are able to exercise the legal procedures. If you look at it, the NRC, the foreigners tribunals had identified foreigners in at least 60 to 70% of the cases, identified foreigners on ex parte. You cannot identify ex parte because it's a criminal procedure. Ultimately, if you are identified as a foreigner, you are sent to detention center. Now, under what law of the land or which judgments of the Supreme Court, where you can punish somebody, sent to jail after hearing ex parte?
Okay.
That doesn't exist in the criminal law, but we are continuing with it. So that's why my whole question, even before the Supreme Court of India, last point I wanted to make, The Supreme Court has put a bail condition of 2 lakhs each for the foreigners who have been declared foreigners by the Foreigners Tribunal. These are people who have served 3 years. Now there are at least 200 people, as figures put by the Assam government before the State Assembly, who have completed more than 5 years. That's the maximum punishment under the Foreigners Act,
I have
Section
30
14.
seconds left on
What
this.
law of this country allows to keep you in prison more than the sentence provided?
Fair enough, fair enough. 30 seconds left. Zafar Islam, answer that. The very, very valid, important points raised by Suhas Chakma. Go ahead, Zafar.
See, no, all these complexities, and I think is being definitely examined by the Honorable Supreme Court, and this is not that is being done by the state administration, but it is monitored by the Honorable Supreme Court. They understand the complication and the other constraint which has been highlighted by Mr. Chakma, and I'm sure that the Honorable Supreme Court will take appropriate decisions so that these issues can also be addressed. But having said that, the objective of the state government as well as the government in the center, and our party is only one
all
objective.
All we can say, I believe, with certainty at this point, Zafar Islam, is there is a lot of uncertainty as far as the NRC process is concerned, at least in Assam. And before we go to a pan-India NRC, we should get our first experiment right here in the state of Assam. Unfortunately, there is distress in the state of Assam, not only those 19 lakh people who find their names excluded from the NRC, but remember, 19 lakh people means 19 lakh families will also be affected. Thank you for joining us, Zafar Islam, Suhas Chakma and Shubhran Rai. That was News Night. I was Athar Khan. Thank you for joining us.